Hi, everyone. Vasu Vaddiparty here for the VPartySports Podcast on this Thursday afternoon, a little after 3 o'clock on the East Coast, 12 o'clock on the West Coast. First show of the week, the first of 4 consecutive shows. We'll be back on Friday at 3 Eastern, 12 Pacific, and then Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, with replays to follow. Big weekend in sports. Obviously, the NFL with the conference championships, the AFC conference championship between Kansas City and Cincinnati, a rematch of last year. And then in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, the number 1 seed, will host the San Francisco 49ers. After both won last week. Philadelphia beat the Giants. San Francisco beat up on Dallas defensively and offensively. And then Kansas City barely won over Jacksonville, but they did not cover, but they did win 27-20. And then Cincinnati went into Buffalo, kind of surprised everybody, and took apart the Buffalo Bills in the defense. A lot of conjecture as to what the scenario was in Buffalo, whether Josh Allen was hurt, whether their defense just couldn't keep up with the 3 talented receivers, and Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Hunter Henry, the tight end, had a big game as well, too, for the Cincinnati Bengals. So those are your final 4 matchups. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll preview little by little each day, but Sunday, a full preview of the NFL Conference Championships. The game started at 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon with the NFC game first, and then at 6:30, the AFC game will go second. So that's what we have right now going on. All right, let's get into college basketball. Don't forget, our best bets will be the Daily Post at 6 o'clock this evening, 3 o'clock on the West Coast, with the best games of the day. Daily Post and the best bets segment, the never duplicated, unprecedented, world-famous best bets segment for today. All right, you look at what's going on during the week. I got to tell you, it's been a rough week here, but I am 500. 12-12-1, one push, but 2-7-1 in the NBA. Coming into the NBA, I was nearly at what was I at? 29-56-34 year to date in the NBA. That's about 64%, 65%. NCAA has been terrible, 64-78-1. Let me make sure I update that here. Make sure we know which ones we're talking about. And there we go. All right, that's not going to work, so let's do this while we're going at it. All right. Well, anyway, you get the idea. Again, no producer. You figure it out from here. And we move on to where I was going to here. All right, not exactly scintillating TV here, but let's get this right. Better to get it right. Okay, 64-78 overall, 4-2 this week in the 6-4 in the NCAA this week, 4-1 in the NHL, including 2 straight days of 2-0. So there you have 12-12-1. Year to date, 29-17 in hockey, 64-78-1 in the NCAA, and 56-34-2 in the NBA overall. 166, 144, and 3, about 55%. As I said, aberration week this week in the NBA. Before this week, coming in at 66%. The NFL, 27-17. That includes the previous Monday's wildcard game between Dallas and Tampa Bay. That wildcard game, and then split last weekend, 1-1 Saturday, 1-1 Sunday, with Jacksonville winning, the Giants losing, San Francisco winning, and Buffalo losing. So 2-2 going into the 2 games this week. The 2 winners will play in the Super Bowl on February 12th. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's start out with the NBA. A couple of notes in the NBA here to go with. First of all, we'll get the line up there and we'll get the ticker going. So you see all the odds going at the bottom. It is a 6-game NBA day. The Knicks and the Celtics on TNT. Pistons, Nets, Bulls, Hornets, Cavaliers, Rockets, Mavs, Suns, Spurs, Clippers. Yesterday in the NBA, had some notes going on here in the NBA for yesterday. The lines right now, Charlotte is 6 at Chicago, 234. Is that right? I don't think that's right. Let me make sure I got that right here. Chicago is 6. All right. We got some mistakes going on here. You know what? Let's take a break here. Let's get this all set up. We'll take a break, and I'll set this all up back to where it needs to be, and we'll go from there. Vasu Vaddiparty here on the VPartySports Podcast. You can contact me at VPartySports as well, at VPartySports on Instagram and Twitter, and then Vasu Vaddiparty on YouTube and Facebook. All right, back in 30 seconds. We'll fix this all up and we'll get clean. Talk to you in a bit. All right, welcome back to the VPartySports Podcast. All the technicalities aside, here we go. Once again, we're here for 4 straight days. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. with replays to follow. Huge weekend in the NFL, obviously with the conference championships, the NCAA. Today is Thursday, so you know what that means. Pac-12, Big Ten, and WCC games. The NBA with 6 games tonight. Let's get back to the NBA where we were. The lines, the corrected lines. Chicago 6 over Charlotte, 234. Boston and New York will play in Boston tonight on TNT. That's 8.5, and that's 8.5 and 223.5. Brooklyn 7.5 versus Detroit. Make sure you check these games for injuries because that seems kind of low on the Pistons. So I want to see who's in. It says no Durant, obviously. Royce O'Neal day-to-day. Day'Ron Sharpe and Seth Curry, the starting guard, is also day-to-day. Isaiah Stewart day-to-day. Corey Joseph, Isaiah Livers is out. Knicks and Celtics. Marcus Smart is out. Danilo Gallinari is out. Fournier out for the Knicks as well. And then the Bulls and Hornets, which we went through already. Goran Dragic, the only one that's out for Chicago. So DeRozan, Levine, and company will be in. Cody Martin, Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball is out. Terry Rozier, Scary Terry, will be day-to-day according to what they have today. Check your injury reports. Of course, at 6 o'clock for best bets. We'll have all the injury reports and injury updates as the latest information, but also do your homework as well, too, before you start throwing money on these games. So there you have it with the NBA. Let's recap a little bit of the NBA this week. Yesterday, the Warriors and Grizzlies played again. Warriors did not cover. 122 to 120, they win. Curry got ejected with a minute to go. The Kings lose to the Raptors, lose big to the Raptors. They were a 3.5-point favorite. They lose by 18 to Toronto. A good game in Milwaukee, except no Jokic, and they pushed. Denver's really good. They had no Murray, no Jokic. They still were able to keep up within 8 points of Milwaukee, 107 to 99. The Sixers did not cover the 5 against the Nets, but it was a big Ben Simmons boo fest last night in Philadelphia, 137 to 133. All these games and all these points. Portland, how about Damian Lillard? Damian Lillard had 60 points last night. That was easily the best game of the night by anybody. 60 points for Damian Lillard. Dame time happened all game. They were down big to Utah to start. They end up winning 134 to 124. Lakers get Anthony Davis back. They win 113 to 104. Anthony Davis had 21 for the winning Lakers. The Spurs now 14 and 34. Lakers 23 and 26. Let's recap Tuesday and Monday a little bit. Bulls blew a 21-point lead on Tuesday. That kind of got me off to this bad start. They lose to Indiana. Heat beat the Celtics by 3. Jimmy Butler was out. Boston had a couple of guys out as well, too. Knicks came back on Cleveland. Nuggets did not cover against the Pelicans. They pushed at -1 at New Orleans. The Wizards beat the Mavericks. They were a 7-point underdog. Phoenix all over Charlotte, 128 to 97. Clippers and Lakers. When Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play together, they are an unstoppable force. Defensively, offensively, they'll put their games together, but they're just very inconsistent right now. I'll give you the standings in a second. But Monday, I want to get back to Monday here a little bit. Monday, the Bucks scored 150 points. Now, I know I had the under in that game. That might have started off because Giannis was not going to play, and then all of a sudden he comes out and plays. But it is Detroit, and they do go big. They win by 20. They cover 11, and they win by 20, 150 to 130. Celtics lose to the Magic, so they're on a 2-game losing streak right now going into tonight. The Bulls beat the Hawks. They covered that. That was an easy one. Then they lose to Indiana the next night. Rockets over the Timberwolves as a dog. The Hornets lost to the Jazz. That was one of my plays. Trailblazers over the Spurs, and then the Kings beat up on Memphis. No John Morant Monday. They were resting him for the Warriors. So that's what we've got going in the NBA this week. Of course, 6 games tonight. As we mentioned, they're up there on the screen right now with all the lines. Tomorrow, full slate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games because a big day Saturday. It's a full slate Saturday, including 3 games on ABC, the Nuggets and 76ers, the Knicks and Nets, and then the Lakers and Celtics, surrounded by a lot of other games to go with that scenario. Raptors and Trailblazers after last night in Sacramento. That's one game Saturday as well. But tomorrow, Saturday, we'll preview a lot of the NBA. We'll delve into the NFL a little bit. But right now, let's hit the college basketball scene. Let's start in the ACC. Clemson, standings-wise, there's no games tonight. 9-1 is Clemson in conference. They've won twice this week. They're on a streak. They are on a 5-game winning streak, I believe. 2 wins this week. They're on a 5-game winning streak, and they have overtaken the Virginia Cavaliers. They've won 2 in a row. Virginia has won 5 in a row. The Tar Heels have won 4 in a row. Virginia 7-2. Pitt, Miami, UNC at 7-3. North Carolina State, Wake Forest, Syracuse all 6-4. And how about Duke? Duke 5-4. They lost the other night. And then but barely beat Virginia Tech on Monday night. They won over. Let's see if we got this right. The Saturday schedule was they beat Miami by 2. They barely beat Virginia Tech by 3. And then they lost on. And those were the 2 games. So 1-1 this week. They split this week, and now they're 5-4 after their 1-game scenario. So the ACC looking like Clemson and Virginia and Pittsburgh and Miami right now, the top 4 in the conference. North Carolina also at 7-3. So no ACC games tonight. Let's hit the AAC, the American Conference. Houston comes back after their loss to Temple on Sunday. They get a win over UCF. They beat them by 11. They did cover the 10. Temple comes back on South Florida, 79-76. I believe Temple was favored by 5 there, so they didn't cover, but they have the win against Houston right now. Standings-wise, the Houston Cougars are 7-1, but Temple on their heels. And, of course, Temple has the win over Houston, so they're 7-2. Memphis is on their heels at 5-2, and they've all got 3-game winning streaks here, both Temple and Memphis. In the ACC tonight, there won't be any games. There's a couple of games, and there's one game tonight. That's Memphis, a 12.5-point favorite over SMU. That game is 7 o'clock on ESPN2. So there you go. Memphis 13 and 150, according to this line that we have here. Now it's Big Ten night on Thursday nights, a doubleheader in the Big Ten, followed by a Pac-12 game. Late night triple header on Fox Sports 1. Michigan State 2.5 versus Iowa at home. 148.5 the total. Purdue a 5.5-point favorite at Michigan. Talk about the mighty have fallen. Purdue, the number 1 team in the country. We know that, 136. They play well on the road. Zach Edey going up against this Michigan team. Of course, their center, the Michigan center, Hunter Dickinson, is there to guard up on Edey, but Edey's been terrific this whole year. In Michigan State, they played well in spurts, but then again, they've also lost in spurts too. Purdue on a 6-game winning streak. They're only lost to Rutgers. Rutgers right behind them at 6-3, 2 games back, but they do have the tiebreaker on Purdue. There's one more match to go with Purdue later in the year. Michigan and Northwestern, both 5-3. Northwestern with 2 wins this week after they got shut down last week by COVID. We'll go through the scores here right now. On Wednesday, Maryland doused Wisconsin. Northwestern on the makeup game with Nebraska by 15. And Indiana did not have Mike Woodson on the sidelines with COVID, 61-57. They beat Minnesota. They did not cover the 9. Illinois beat Ohio State Tuesday night, 69-60. And the aforementioned Rutgers by 20 over Penn State. And Penn State's pretty good. Monday night, the makeup game, Northwestern barely hung on to beat Wisconsin. They were a 2-point favorite. That was the makeup game. They cover the 2, win by 3. And here's where they are in the standings. And they're playing well. They're 14-5 overall, 5-3 in conference. This is one of the toughest conferences in all of basketball. Northwestern, Michigan, Rutgers, all 3 losses. Purdue 8-1, and then Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan State, all with 4 losses. Iowa 4-4. The aforementioned 3 are 5-4 going into this weekend. So a lot to make up for Wisconsin, Maryland, and Penn State. Ohio State 3-6 in conference. Nebraska 3-7. Minnesota trailing on the bottom 1-8. They've lost 4 in a row, but they played better on these games. So we'll hit the Big 12 in a second in the SEC because they've got a big schedule and big challenge coming up this weekend. How about Xavier in the Big East? Let's hit the Big East here real quick. Xavier with a win last night. They beat up on UConn, 82-79. They had a big lead going into half. They were up 14. UConn chipped away. But Xavier held on. They never gave up the lead at all, 82-79. They are 9-1 in the conference, ahead of Marquette and Providence, who is 8-2. Creighton is 6-3, playing better. They've got a 3-game winning streak going. And then you've got Seton Hall at 5-5 and Connecticut 5-6. Remember, Connecticut started out 14-0, and now they're 2-5, 2-6 now after the loss last night in their last 8 games. So they're 16-6 and 5-6 in conference play. Xavier, Marquette, Providence, Creighton at 6-3. Seton Hall, who's underrated, they're 5-5, but they can compete with anybody in the Big East. So there you have it there. In the MAC conference, Kent State and Akron are both 6-1. No games today. 1 game tomorrow, Buffalo and Kent State. So Kent State going to put that 6-1 record up against Buffalo. Toledo's 5-2. Akron, 5-game winning streak is where they're at. That put them at 6-1. They're 10-0 at home, and they don't play till Saturday. They've got Ohio University on Saturday afternoon at 2:00. So that would be a big one for Akron. And then Kent State will go Friday night against Buffalo. Both teams fighting it out, 6-1 right now, and Toledo right there. All right, we move on to the Pac-12. It is Pac-12 Thursday. Actually, let's start with the Missouri Valley Conference. I've talked about Belmont a ton this year. Belmont is playing very well, and yet they're tied with Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois' defense is tremendous. 9-2 are both they leading at the top of the conference. Then you've got Northern Iowa at 8-3, Drake, Bradley, and Missouri State, all 7-4. The 7-game winning streak for Belmont. I told you how good they are. They're covering left and right, so keep that in mind when you get to that. And then Southern Illinois has won 5 straight, and right now they're atop. I don't know if they played each other yet or not. Let's see. Southern Illinois did beat Belmont early in the year on New Year's Day, so they have the tiebreaker edge right now. I believe the other game will be – when are they playing Belmont? They're not playing them in January. They're playing them in February. They are playing them in – they might be only playing them once. Let's see here. Yeah, they're only playing them once, so maybe that's the scenario that they have going on. I'll double-check that. But Southern Illinois and Belmont are both 9-2. And then Northern Iowa, Drake, Bradley, Missouri State, all 7-4. Missouri State, a very sleeper, underrated team. Bradley and Drake near the top. At the beginning of the year, they've gone on a 3-game winning streak for Northern Iowa. Drake on a 2-game winning streak. Bradley 3-4 away from home. This weekend, they will be, I believe they're going to be there on Sunday. They are on the road at the University of Illinois, Chicago. So there you have it in the Missouri Valley Conference. The Mountain West, San Diego State running away with the Mountain West right now. Well, not really running away, but it's Air Force in New Mexico tonight. Tomorrow night. New Mexico, 12.5-point favorite. That's at 7 o'clock West Coast time for New Mexico and Air Force. But standings-wise, San Diego State 7-1, Boise State, Nevada, both 6-2. And then you've got New Mexico 5-3, Utah State 5-3. My Spartans are 4-4. That's the top half of the bracket right there. San Jose State 4-4 has played well. Some of the previous games from the week, Wednesday, San Diego State beat up on Utah State. That was going to be a good matchup. They beat them by 10. I believe they covered that game too. They were a 7.5-point favorite. Tuesday, Boise State beat up on Fresno State. San Jose State by 30 over Air Force, and then UNLV over Wyoming. Last weekend, Wyoming came back, beat Colorado State. Fresno State over UNLV. San Jose State lost by 1 to Utah State, played well against Utah State, a top-tier team. San Diego State 70-60. San Diego State's only loss so far this year in conference has been to New Mexico. So when they play again, it's going to be a good showing. Vasu Vaddiparty here with you. You can reach me at VPartySports on Twitter and Instagram, also Facebook and YouTube. Thanks to everybody for their comments. Thanks to everybody for their support. Let's hit the Pac-12 and the SEC here real quick. We got 5 games tonight, I believe. 5 games tonight. UCLA, a 4.5-point favorite at USC. USC played them tough the first time, lost by 3 that first game, did not cover the 11.5. Here, UCLA at 4.5 points on the road at 134 the total. Oregon, a 6.5-point favorite over Colorado. What's happened in Colorado? They've been struggling since they got off to a really good start non-conference-wise. Arizona, 5-point favorite at Washington State. a big game on Saturday at Washington. That game will be the middle game of a triple-header on Fox. We'll promote that more on Saturday. But right now, Arizona at Washington State, that game on FS1 tonight, 8 o'clock on the West Coast. That's the third game of a triple-header following the two Big Ten games, which is Purdue and Michigan, and then Michigan State and Iowa. Arizona State at Washington. Arizona State, a 2.5-point favorite, 143.5. And then Utah at Oregon State as a 7.5-point favorite there. UCLA 8-1. They're 2 games better than Utah, Arizona, USC, and Arizona State. Utah has 7 wins. Meanwhile, Arizona, USC, Arizona State all have 6 wins. So big weekend coming up in the Pac-12 as it is every weekend. All right, the big SEC Big 12 Challenge. Let's go back to the Big 12 here. The Big 12 SEC Challenge, 10 games Saturday, all over the ESPN family of networks. I'll run down the games. We'll give you a preview of it. It starts at 9 a.m. West Coast time, goes all the way until about 11 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock here on the West Coast. But it goes Auburn, West Virginia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Missouri, Texas Tech, LSU, TCU, Mississippi State. How about Mississippi State giving Alabama a tough time? Arkansas and Baylor, Tennessee and Texas. Tennessee hosts Texas. Florida, Kansas State, Kansas and Kentucky, Ole Miss and Oklahoma. All right. In the Big 12, as we said, standings-wise, Iowa State and Kansas State lead the way, along with Texas. They're all 6-2. TCU, Baylor, and Kansas all 5-3. TCU a big win 2 nights ago. Baylor beat up on Kansas. Kansas has lost 3 in a row. Baylor has won 5 in a row. And Texas Tech has lost 8 in a row. They lost last night to West Virginia at home by 15. Tuesday night, TCU beat up on Oklahoma by 27. Iowa State did not cover the 5.5 against Kansas State, 80-76. And then Texas all over Oklahoma State, 89-75. And then Monday night, we told you about Baylor by 6 over Kansas. They were a 2-point favorite, ended up coming out with the victory. And then Saturday, we told you about the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Let's hit the SEC. Same scenario, the Big 12 Challenge, 10 games. But 2 games are in conference in the SEC, and we'll break those down a little bit later as well, too. It is Ole Miss and Oklahoma State. And then I believe it's Texas Tech and LSU. Nope, that's not right. Texas Tech and LSU. I saw 2. I thought I saw Vanderbilt also in here somewhere. Vanderbilt and Georgia. Is that correct? I figured out. Oh, here we go. The SEC. That's what it is. The SEC has South Carolina and Georgia. That's 1 game. Ole Miss and Oklahoma State. Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. South Carolina and Georgia, the 2 games that are going to be in conference games. Everybody else playing in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. A big Saturday in college basketball. Friday, we're not going to delve into too much college basketball. On Friday, there's not a lot going on. The Kent State game in the Missouri Valley Conference, and then the other game that I was looking at for tomorrow, Iona, Siena, but those are small conferences. Buffalo and Kent State, Air Force and New Mexico. New Mexico right up there at the top in the Mountain West. All right, last one, the WCC. St. Mary's. How about St. Mary's? They lead the conference. They're 7-0. Remember, Gonzaga had the upset loss against Loyola Marymount. Santa Clara, Loyola Marymount are all 4-3. And right now, it could be anybody's conference, but you got to think St. Mary's and Gonzaga are the named players. Tonight, Portland and LMU. LMU a 5.5-point favorite over Portland, and Pepperdine a 3-point favorite over San Diego. SMU, St. Mary's 7-0, Gonzaga 6-1, Santa Clara, LMU 4-3, and then BYU at 4-4. And that's where we're at in the WCC. All right, last thing here we got before we go to break will be the NHL. Hockey, Boston at Tampa Bay, 115 is Boston favored by. It's better than $4. I don't know. Do you take Boston right now? The Boston Bruins are 38-5-4 with a total of 80 points. They have 80 points already. We're just barely over the halfway point. We could be seeing all sorts of records being shown up here. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now where they don't even have a point there. They're at 115 at Tampa Bay. Detroit 155 at Montreal. The Red Wings are 20-18-8, and Montreal 20-25-3. Washington and Pittsburgh, that's a good rivalry as well. Both teams playing well. Washington favored on the road against the Penguins, 6.5 the total. Winnipeg and Buffalo are playing tonight. Winnipeg red hot. They have a good record right now. They're going strong. They are 31-17, and they lost their last game, but they're 31-17. They're right behind Dallas, 2 points behind Dallas in the Central Division standings for the Winnipeg Jets, and they're $1.80 at Buffalo tonight with a total of 6.5. The Devils, they came back and won the other night, 3-2 in overtime. They're a 130 favorite at Nashville, 6 the total. Minnesota, Philadelphia, oh my gosh. Philadelphia started off good, but now they're just playing terrible, and it shows. 20-21-8 for Philadelphia. Minnesota fourth in the Central Division at 25-17. Central Division really strong. Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Minnesota. Seattle in first place in the Pacific. They won last night, as I gave you that one. Them and the Toronto Maple Leafs were the two games I gave you last night. So Minnesota 240. That's high, 6 the total. But you want to talk about high? 410. Calgary 410 as a favorite versus the Blackhawks. 6 the total there. But that's $4 to win one. $4.10 to win one. Who would do that now? I don't know who would do that. That maybe a chance to take Chicago on the road, getting about $3.20. So $1 will get you back $3.20. It's an interesting proposition, but I would not lay $4.10 on the off chance that the Blackhawks have a hot night. St. Louis $1.50 at Arizona, 6.5 the total there. St. Louis has been struggling, but they're over 500, 23-22. Meanwhile, Arizona, also in the Central Division, they are 15-28, so they're well behind St. Louis and the rest of the pack in the Central Division. And then Colorado versus Anaheim, another $4 favorite here for the Colorado Avalanche. Anaheim, we know they don't score. We know they have a tough time in scoring. 14-29-5 for Anaheim. Meanwhile, Colorado, third in the Central Division, 26-17-3, 55 points. Right, they're about eight. They're eight back of Winnipeg and 10 back of Dallas in terms of points and standings. And then Anaheim only 33 points this year. They are tied with Columbus for the worst point totals in the NHL this year. All right, one more look at the football here. The lines for the NFL: Philadelphia 2.5 versus San Francisco 46.5. That game 3:00 Eastern, 12:00 Pacific time on Fox for all you 49er fans out there. Kansas City has gone from a 1-point favorite to a 1-point underdog back to a 1-point favorite over Cincinnati, 47.5. We know about Cincinnati's offensive line problems. Capps and Wilson, the left tackle and the right guard, I believe, for Cincinnati, questionable. They didn't even play against Buffalo last weekend, but 47.5 the total, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 West Coast time on CBS. Of course, the two winners will meet in Super Bowl 57, Glendale, Arizona, on February 12th at 6:30 game time, as always, for the Super Bowl. So there's your Final Four matchup. Funny thing about the NFL matchups, and we'll get more into it, Andy Reid coached both KC and Philadelphia, spent 14 years in Philadelphia, and then 10 years now in his 10th year in Kansas City. Also, Jason Kelce, the center for the Eagles, will go up against his brother if they make it to the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce, the all-world tight end. Jason anchors the offensive line for the Eagles. Travis, of course, the great tight end for Kansas City. San Francisco and Cincinnati played 2 Super Bowls back in the 80s, both in 81 and 88. 49ers victorious in both of them. Montana with comebacks in both of them to beat Cincinnati. Dan Bunn's the great stop on 4th down against Pete Johnson. And then Montana to Taylor on the 89-yard drive to clinch it and beat the Bengals in the last minute of that game in that Super Bowl. Third time the Bengals have reached the third time. The Bengals will reach the Super Bowl if they can win on Sunday. They've already been there the 3 times. I'm sorry, they've been there 3 times already. This will be the 4th time they get to the Super Bowl if they reach again this year, and it'll be back-to-back. Twice in the 80s, once last year against the Rams. They have not won any of those Super Bowls, we said. And then San Francisco and Kansas City, the other combination, they played in the 2019 Super Bowl, which the Chiefs came back from 21-10 down, end up winning 24-10. We all know about the Tyreek Hill sluggo route, the slant and go. Got caught up in one-on-one coverage. 49ers had a lead. They just had to figure out how to close it out in the last 7 minutes. Did not come to fruition. Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid, they are the Super Bowl champions. They were the Super Bowl champions in 2019. All right, don't forget the best bets. We'll have the Daily Post at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock on the Pacific time, with the best games of the day, the best bets, the world famous, unprecedented, never duplicated best bets segment for today on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, NFL Conference Championship preview, NBA, NCAA. Really looking forward to that Big 12 SEC Challenge this weekend. 10 games out of conference for both the Big 12 and the SEC. Of course, NHL goes. We got a triple header in the NBA on Saturday on network TV. Big schedule on Saturday, not a big schedule on Sunday for obvious reasons, because football will dominate on Sunday. And on Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, we'll have a full preview of both championship games. A little basketball, a little hockey, a little college basketball to talk about on Sunday, but it'll all be devoted mostly to the NFL and to the conference championship games. All right. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Thank you very much for your support. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all your comments. Greatly appreciated. Look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. Don't forget the Daily Post at 6 o'clock tonight with the Best Bets segment. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great Thursday. See you soon.